When I started off my welcome remarks, I spoke about Freshworks having the opportunity and good fortune in being a witness to the transformation that's happening in the citizen-centric delivery space, right? My team and I, we've also had the chance to kind of partner with some of the organizations, right? So the topic for today's discussion is putting technology at the front and center of citizen delivery for AtmaNirbhar Bharat. And I'm beyond thrilled to be having this panel, and they are practitioners, they are change agents in their respective departments driving change, right? So without further ado, I want to jump into the discussion. I'm going to pick their brains to understand how are they thinking through some of these changes, how are they driving this transformation, how are they getting the buy-ins internally to drive something as critical as this, and how are they making it a priority in their respective departments, right? So I want to start off with Ajitab ji, and I want to start off with a two-part question. One is, how are we making transportation services more accessible and affordable to citizens? And the second question that I have is, how are we leveraging technology to improve citizen service delivery in the transportation sector?
Can we, I'm sorry. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Ajitab Sharma, 96 batch IS officer. I am from Rajasthan cadre, and currently I am working as chairman and managing director of Jaipur City Transport Services Limited. And my so-called passion basically lies though in water sector and energy sector and partly towards sustainability. I'm first of all I'm very thankful to Ravi Gupta ji and Freshworks for giving me this opportunity to remain present here and express my views. Karthik, can you repeat that first question?
Yeah, so the first question is, how are we making transportation services accessible and affordable for citizens, and the role of technology in delivering great citizen experience in this specific sector?
Okay, so I'm not directly going into what we at Jaipur City Transport Services Limited, we call JCTSL in Jaipur City. We exactly are doing a few innovative things. I'm not discussing those into detail, but whatever I could gather and the manner in which we planning our operations and business functions to be reorganized and re-evolved, I would simply try to focus on few points. See, what I understand is transportation is basically, it is a kind of whole ecosystem. It is not something related to like owning personal cars, that is the personal transport, or then two-wheelers are also there. Then there are private minibuses also which ply in quite a large number, particularly like tier 2 or 3 cities like Jaipur, Nagpur, Indore, Bhopal. Then there are metro rail services also, and then there are city bus services which are operated by the government-owned state public utilities. So it is a whole ecosystem. The solution doesn't lie only with state transport utilities. We have to look at the whole scenario, and as you mentioned about accessibility and affordability, right? So it is, when we talk about accessibility and affordability, it is basically a kind of problem which we have to solve. So when we talk about accessibility, so in terms of transportation engineering, coincidentally, I am a civil engineer also, and I have studied transportation engineering also in our college days. So it is more about like developing a kind of service plan when we talk about accessibility. So it is not only that you provide like a metro rail service or city bus, but the overall idea is about mobility, creating good mobility ecosystem in the whole city. So it has to be like walkable, safe, reliable, accessible, affordable, responsive, participative, and at the same time it has to be sustainable also. Sustainable not only in terms of the environmental context, but also in terms of the business operations. It has to be sustainable, otherwise we will not be able to provide transport services for a long period of time. So the National Transport Policy of Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs also gives a mandate to all states that all major cities would develop a comprehensive mobility plan. And that CMP, Comprehensive Mobility Plan, needs to be revised in every 5 years. And it would be entailing the overall transportation ecosystem, that how the problem of providing affordable and accessible transport can be achieved. So, and the major underlying criteria, like what we are doing in JCTSL, one thing is that we are developing a service plan, and we are in touch with Ernst & Young, and then there are few other small think tanks which are working at the local level. Currently, we are able to cover, say, around like 20% of the road network of Jaipur city through our mix of 300 state-owned buses and around 1,200 private minibuses or midi buses, which are operated by private owners. So first, this 20% has to be enhanced at least to 60%. So I need to cover 60% of the road network area. How do I cover that 60% of the area? Because I have to keep the social aspects also in my mind. So I have to take care of the marginalized sections of the society, people where low-income households, areas where low-income households are situated, the adjoining slum areas. So how do I make my investment? That becomes very important. So when I enhance my road network coverage from 20 to 60%, what kind of mode I have to select? Whether the government has to invest more in the metro rail operations or into city bus operations, or whether the government should consider more about integrating the IPT system, that is the intermediate public transport, for first and last mile connectivity. So unless we start thinking about for each city in terms of developing a CMP, the comprehensive mobility plan, and we have few objective guidelines for preparing a service plan. And then there are a number of things like then would be how you are catering to the institutional areas or the office areas where the office spaces are there, how you are catering to areas like where hospitals are situated or where the industry is located in the periphery area of the town, whichever we are talking about. So these all aspects are to be considered in terms of accessibility. And the basic idea is like within 500 meters, there has to be a bus stop. And when we talk about metro rail operations, because I have worked as CMD of metro also, the idea is that within a reach of 1 kilometer, there has to be a metro station. So Jaipur is nowhere close to have that kind of service level benchmark in terms of metro rail operations, but the expansion which we are planning, the fleet expansion for city bus operations of creating an electric mobility ecosystem, we are thinking about reaching this level of a bus stop near 500 meters, consolidation of IPT intermediate public transport in terms of hiring not only buses, but getting into contract with service providers which run electric three-wheelers also. So it is something, it is a very complex set of things. So it is about accessibility. And last point, affordability is basically less related to engineering aspect. It is more related to the business aspect of the organization. So because like if the ticket ranges from rupees 5 to rupees 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, it is based on the distances the passenger travels through the bus for each or number of stops. So how do I finalize that? That is not in the hand of the State Transport Authority. Come electric buses, creation of electric mobility ecosystem, the per kilometer cost of operation, whoever says what, I have been reading a lot of reports from different forums and different think tanks, but when you go into the market and bid out, electric vehicle costs you more as of now. Though the cost gets spread out in a period of 12 or 15 years, but then there are, because of the issues of replacement of battery after a period of 7 to 8 years, the per kilometer cost of operation is high. Who is going to bear that cost? So if there isn't any provision like the further extension of FAME 2 subsidy by Government of India, or something like viability gap funding from some kind of transport related fund which is created at the state level, or some kind of international aid which I get, even for operations, not for my capital investment, capital expenditure, for operations also. So depending on that, I will determine my tariff structure. So that would determine about the affordability. And the international reports and perhaps the ministry's report also, Mahua, I read somewhere that it is said that an ordinary household should not be spending more than 20% of it, the household income, for transportation purposes. But if we dig deeper and try to analyze the socio-economic aspect in detail, there would be large number of people in big metropolitan towns where the public transportation system is not well developed. They end up in spending more than 50 to 60% of their total household income for the purpose of transportation and commuting, like going to schools or hospitals or to work. So this is a basic facility. So money has to come from somewhere, keeping this benchmark of 20% of out-of-pocket payment from the households. How can government titrate it and then further facilitate, specifically for the disadvantaged and the marginalized sections of the society? So it is more like a kind of a policy issue where fiscal interventions by the state government or the authorities or other financial institutions is needed. I hope I've been able to answer
No,
that.
you have absolutely very, very interesting, and just the kind of complexity that is there and the number of parameters that one needs to consider to think through some of these things is just mind-boggling. I want to move to IPS Sethi ji, who is the Deputy Director General at NIC. Sir, I want to understand from you, what is the role, I mean, we all understand the critical role that NIC plays, but if you can elaborate on the role that NIC plays in this whole transformation that's happening in government, that'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. NIC under Ministry of Electronic and IT is the technical arm for the government providing IT and e-governance solution. Our focus is citizen empowerment through digital transformation. More power to the citizen so that with ease they can do various functions right from birth to death. A lot of activities citizen has to do. So we are building digital products and platform for the government, for various departments. I give you one example. Last session, the speaker was talking about COVID, Arogya Setu. We developed 22 crore people onboarded, contact tracing and all those things. RT-PCR mobile app we developed in 2 days time because problem was that ICMR was not able to send the data from all the districts to center health ministry, how many casualties and total positive, negative and all those things. So those were the things. You have seen migrant workers in Delhi struggling, going. So one nation, one ration card. A smart card, ration card issued with interoperable. You can draw ration from anywhere in the country. 19.2 crore ration cards are Aadhaar seeded now, and they can draw ration from 5.32 lakhs fair price shop, which are POS enabled. So those are the scales. E-courts, judiciary, Supreme Court, High Court, 21,000 tribunals, courts, all are fully automated, cause list, litigant, judges, bench, 1951 onwards, all the judgments of the courts, and those are the things. Narega 15 crore job cards are issued, and now we are geotagging the assets created, so that whether it's a road created or a well created or nali is created, so then harvesting facilities are created, so that all are geotagged, so that there is no duplication again, and everything is transparent manner, public finance, PFMS platform is there, where every penny of the government for various schemes from central government goes to the people. 12,000 schemes are onboarded there, and 2.5 lakh crores of worth of money is getting transacted on that platform. And you know that 2017 demonetization happened by the government, and we were asked to develop a dashboard, Digithan dashboard to monitor. And last month in January, 802 crore UPI transaction alone. Not only in the metro city, in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, worth 11 trillion rupees have been done by the citizens of this country, and we are, every penny you spend digitally is being monitored on that dashboard, and we are have a linkage through API with the 110 banks and RBI and National Payment Corporation of India. And now, since it is more important that India is having the presidency of G20, and it is more important that Make in India should be for Make for the World. And India Stack has been developed like UPI, GSTN, Aadhaar, then e-office, e-hospital. There are 12 products identified which can be, and many more will come in that suite, which are open API, open standards, open operable. So that technology is not the proprietary technology, should not be a binding that it has to be that. And so G20 and other developing country also, we are going for that, that Indian products are there. And lastly, you know that everybody is using Google Docs and Sheet, and your entire data goes out of country. Security, and particularly our defense services and critical offices are finding very difficult. So we have developed collab files, collaborative tool for document sheets, and you can have a secure communication collaboration, and which is hosted on the internal servers, and it's highly secure. And particularly recently, coal auction and DOT telecom, they have used this because there were always a threat of data leakage. If you so such kind of activities also under AtmaNirbhar Bharat we are doing. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Very, very impressive. Equally impressive is your ability to just rattle out these numbers. Your memory is just amazing. I want to quickly shift gears and move to Anirudh Gupta ji, who's the General Manager IT, National Hydroelectric Power Corporation Private Limited. So what are the trends, key technology trends that you're seeing from a citizen delivery standpoint? And the second part of the question is, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in implementing those?
Good afternoon. Myself, Anirudh Gupta, General Manager IT and Chief Information Security Officer in NHPC. Basically, the NHPC has been set up by Ministry of Power for development of the hydroelectric project. And NHPC has the capability for development of the hydro projects from encapsulation to commissioning of the projects. In addition to the hydro power, NHPC has also entered into the solar and winds. As far as IT is concerned, NHPC is not connected directly with the citizen, but yes, because we have to generate the power, and the hydropower is the mode of power generation which the plant can be shut down and operated immediately as and when there is a peaking load, and making the power plant available by using the IT technology is the objective of the IT department or IT technology being used in NHPC. And there are two type of applications. One is for the employee related. As the NHPC projects are located in different and the very isolated part of the country, right from Leh Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, where the transportation and communication is a challenge. For the employee related applications, recently we have implemented the Sachal mobile applications by which the employee can mark their attendance, where the connectivity and the other resources like biometric or some other mode of marking the attendance is not feasible. And we have made the attendance system by geofencing it, and on GPS based, without the employee can mark their attendance without if the internet connectivity is not there. And similarly, there are some other applications because moving the documents in the remote area from one location to other location is a challenge. So we have implemented the file management system, inter-office IOM system, and ERP is also implemented in NHPC. And for other stakeholders, the stakeholders or the citizens, in case of NHPC is the contractor, supplier, and labor. For contractor point of view, we have developed a contractor portal on which the contractor can, after raising his bill in the ERP system or to the submission to the bill to the concerned officer, the bill will be entered into the contractor portal system, and he can view the movement or the action taken by the concerned officer through online portal. And similarly for the labor, contractor labor portal, as per the guidelines, if there is a total 20 number of labor is engaged by any party or any organization, he has to follow the guidelines of the labor ministry. And in NHPC to compliance for this, we have developed a labor portal on which the contractor who is having the employee more than 20, labor means, he has to necessarily enter the details of the employee he has engaged and their details like EPF, ESI and the payment he has made. In addition to this, we have because the NHPC locations or projects power stations are located in the very remote location, and procurement and tendering is a challenge. So we have implemented the procurement system also, in which the anybody can from any part of the India or can participate in this, and which has improved the procurement time cycle, and the transparency has also been increased. So these are some of the key initiatives. In addition to this, we have also developed the mobile application for other stakeholders by the name Shaksham, on which the progress of, there are two type of button on this application. One is for the power stations. Power station means which are the generating unit and generating the power. And second is the projects. And the current status of the projects, because there are various steps from getting the clearance, like from DPR, PIB, CCA, environment clearance, land clearance, all are updated on the system, and all the stakeholders can see what is the current status. So in that way, we are using the IT in enhancing the performance of the organization.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I want to move to BRK Pillaji, who is the Chief Engineer, Human Resource Management, Central Water Commission, Ministry of Jal Shakti. This is an important question. A lot of us are very keen and intrigued to understand what are the key policy and institutional reforms that are needed to accelerate citizen-centric service delivery in the water resource sector.
Thank you. Good evening to all. See, the issue of technology per se, I would like to touch on that first. When it comes to water resources, unlike any other resource which we generally deal with, we have a kind of a greater challenge which comes in this sector mainly because of the nature of, the availability of water as such. Water is essentially what we call as a stochastic resource. Basically, it's something where things are very unpredictable. I mean, you cannot have a confidence. You can only make a guess. You cannot really even predict it. So that makes the whole paradigm little, uncertain, and the whole planning and implementation and, meeting the level of, what we call as the satisfaction, it basically depends on the monsoon, and it changes a lot. So what we do is practically in this sector, we talk in everything in terms of probability. Even our, schemes are designed with some kind of a probability only. Though in general, people don't even come to know about it, but that's how the whole planning happens, and that's how the things happen. And those become some kind of, a constraining factors. Now the technology can be a big enabler in this area, because we can have better, models, to get into these areas, and with the current, machine language and artificial intelligence, these things are something which, because these are only just happening now. So in future, we are going to unfold into this area and probably make a huge difference as far as the, this uncertain domain is concerned. That this applies to both the extremities like drought and, flood, extreme events. And somewhere in between also, when we are not able to, even meet the frequent changes in the, demand because of the variations in the cropping pattern or things like that. or variability because of, you know, uncertainty of rain happening here, maybe not happening there, that kind of, even within the acceptable range also, in pockets things can be very different. So a possibility of, you know, relying more on the machine language and artificial intelligence, we can model it much better. Then there are other areas also in terms of, you know, for example, practically most of the water resources is coming out of what we call as the river valley projects. Again, we may have perceptions about, you know, a lot of dependability on groundwater, but again, I mean, most of this groundwater actually comes from these, you know, large irrigated project, though, because this water goes down and then forms part of, you know, groundwater also. So a substantial portion, you can say, is dependent on the river valley project. So the way we use this water, you know, there is a huge possibility of, you know, having a cascading system. So far we see them only as isolated. So there are pockets of inefficiencies. But if we can see them as a cascading system, you know, a series of reservoirs, that can bring huge, you know, jump in our efficiency in terms of both drought as well as flood management. And there again, this kind of technologies which are now coming up, especially the GIS-based technology tools where we can actually, you know, model these things and come to understand what is the optimum way of operating these projects. That is going to be the, you know, future intervention. Then of course, most of the projects you can understand in India, because the water is essentially treated as a state subject, and there is a kind of a, you know, scarcity mindset about the water in practically in all our state setups. So there is a lot of conflict on water resources issues, and these conflicts are the, you know, bottleneck which actually prohibit taking up the projects. Even if we take up the projects, the timely completion becomes a challenge because we end up with a lot of litigations. Even if we come out of that, then operating and managing on day-to-day basis also becomes a big challenge. And these kind of, you know, problems, to some extent, are also because of the ambiguity of information, you know. The same information, I may be reading it differently or understanding differently than my counterpart. So there is a lot of ambiguity in this data management. Even, you know, the primary data source itself becomes, you know, questionable. The technology can do a lot in this area. And we hope that once we overcome this issue of, you know, actual data management, we will be able to resolve at least some of the issues which are driven purely by the ambiguity in data. And then comes the actual management part of it. Like, for example, if we look at the way water resources project, though we design our dams and canal system very, you know, efficiently, but then we end up with a real challenge when it comes to the distribution. The last mile connectivity we generally refer as command area development, where this whole water has to actually go to each farm. Like, government's mission is to provide har ghar ko nal and har khet ko pani. So when it comes to har khet ko pani, this is the one which still remains like the biggest challenge, because we cannot bring this water to every farm with that huge kind of a network. And even if we do that, it cannot be sustained over a long period. It can be only a one-time capital investment with gigantic effort, but when it comes to maintenance and, you know, operating this, it becomes next big challenge. So this is one area where the new technologies, you know, especially the SCADA system, where we can have a small, you know, gated system and maybe control it through remote, and maybe pass on the controls to cooperatives, you know, water user associations, so that water user association can become our frontier. I mean, they become the client rather than every farmer becoming the client. And that is a viable thing. And then automatically what we have been, you know, dreaming all about, that the water tariff has to be, you know, levied at least for operation and maintenance, and it should be levied on a volumetric basis, which till now has been practically not translated, you can say. That becomes doable because the kind of technologies now have become, it has become prevalent. It was being applied because world over they have large size of farms, so it was doable there. We were having small units, but now better equipments, better technologies available, that can be done. So that is more on the technology part of it, but when you talk in terms of, citizen-centric role, at least the last part of it, where actually the farmers come into play, that's where this can be actually a great tool, because if not in terms of, meeting their demand immediately, at least the information dissemination can be easily handled by the kind of tools which are easily available, like my co-panelist already mentioned what all things we have done in the recent time. All those things are very much doable, and that is going to make all the difference. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to ask Dr. U.S. Pandey, who's the principal School of Open Learning. Sir, what are some of the most exciting opportunities for digital-first engagement in e-governance in India?
First of all, very good afternoon to all. Actually, we at Delhi University, the first institution, distance education of India, we established in 1962. And we are doing a lot of pioneer activity in the field of education, basically. By delivering, at the moment, we have more than 5.5 lakh students. So you can imagine catering all the needs of those students. Each and every activity is fully online. So you can imagine that what we are doing, even in the Corona period, we have delivered more than 12,000 lectures online. After delivering that, which was very helpful to not only Delhi University students, it was going to be helpful to the entire country, even beyond that also. We have each and every step is fully online, starting from the admission process. Even nowadays, if you know, CUET is going on. But although it is not directly under Delhi University, but by Samarth portal, we are controlling all those things. So major all 40 central universities are being taken care by this Samarth portal, where all the activity of this admission process to catering up to examination. Although till now at the moment we are not doing the examinations activity online, some of the processes in Corona period we have adopted. We are thinking for the proctoring examination process, which is already going on in many parts. But we know there are many technology partners are here. At the moment, proctor examinations are very costly affair, at least from the Delhi University, those poor students who are just paying 3 to 4,000 rupees for the entire course. So what we are just trying to provide every activity, we are doing online classes where all the facilities are going to be provided. We are taking the help of artificial intelligence and IoT also to deliver in some good way. Like just to know about the behavioral activity of the students. Some kind of assessments are going to be done which could be AI based, maybe taking the help of other technologies. We have our own ERP system where all these things are going to be taken. We have developed an individual dashboard for every student. So even if you have passed out from Delhi University, School of Open Learning, you can access through your dashboard all the facility which is required. Maybe it is an admit card, maybe going about the course activity, some of the study material you want. You want to access our library is very high tech. We have a e-Pustak Dar and connected to the entire world. So many good things are going to be there. So in nutshell, I can say that in Delhi University, in the School of Open Learning, we are doing a lot because we are the first institution of distance education in India, as I mentioned. Still, at the moment, we have implemented the NEP also. National Education New Policy, which have been adopted, which is very effective, and I think more than 1.5 lakh students are doing that job. We are just doing assessment to our own system. So imagine we are just catering the students in a very good way in that way. Another important thing, as you are already aware, digital university is coming very soon. So Delhi University is going to be also a nodal part of that, is taking part. Digital universities taking assistance of some IITs and this Delhi University. So with the Delhi Universities coming, the digital university, at least the government's objective is to increase the GER, gross enrollment ratio, which is definitely it will increase because this is the only way how we can increase the GER. Otherwise, it is very difficult to reach to the common people regarding a city. Recently, if you know that the Government of India in the budget session has announced even to provide the education to the Kisans, a different kind of activity. Through the digital platform, we are in a position to deliver many skill-based courses to the entire country, not only in Delhi people, many skill courses I can name, which you can't think that from sitting in Delhi and you are providing all information to the farmers at the village level. So the other courses, like a lot of courses related to the IT-based activities also. We are very good students who are residing in villages, they are going to be fully benefited. And another important, we are just being utilizing the 5G activities. And as you are aware, many IITs are working beyond 5G. You can't imagine only about the 5G, and that is the, I think, backbone of this education industry. So we are utilizing in that many good way. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. And last but not the least, I want to move to Kanishka, who is head service lines India, South Asia at AWS. AWS has been such a critical player in this ecosystem, and they've seen this journey. What are your thoughts? What have you observed in terms of cloud readiness and this transformation that's happened, Kanishka?
Sure, thanks. So, I was hearing in the fellow panelists on this, just to give you some sense of some numbers that is coming out in 2026 and beyond, right? We are expected to be about a $13 billion industry just for cloud services for the public sector. And this is for citizen impact only. I'm not even talking about cloud services that exist for commercial interests. And that's a sizable market that we will eventually move towards. If you look at most of the public procurement that is today happening, it is with an eye that it has to eventually either be on cloud or move in a graduated fashion to cloud. A classic story, and all of you will know this, the CoWIN app actually runs on the cloud. It runs on AWS. And CoWIN app is probably touted as one of the biggest digital public goods that has come out of India, is being exported to multiple other countries outside of India, is being repurposed as a immunization platform. And it's a platform that has been absolutely resilient for a complete 100% uptime. On the day of the Prime Minister's birthday, we had 25 million vaccinations hit, and the system didn't creak. And this is unheard of. Most of the systems that typically would be on a standard on-prem data center. And people are realizing that capacity can't increase if you had these co-location sort of physical data centers. You needed to move it to cloud for it to take up those ups and the downs that we talk about. So, you look at several other public services that are today. Rag spoke about the entire project, step one. The eSanjeevani OPD, again, a great use case where you have people actually dialing in for medical help, and these are people who don't have access to a primary healthcare center. And they're dialing in to find out, what do I do about so-and-so ailment? And these are being routed to either doctors or primary care specialists. And then they process this, but it's all done on the cloud because the scale can go up and down. During COVID, this spiked completely. But as soon as the second wave ebbed, you had a trough coming in. Now, what do I do of the capacity? Interestingly, there was another point that I wanted to make on how this is actually making a significant impact on some extremely important problems that we're seeing on the ground. I don't know how many of you know that there is a metric that the World Health Organization actually uses to decide whether a child is born, has malnutrition or is healthy. And that weight is about 2.5 kgs. If you actually went into most villages and taluk levels, you will find a lot of places where these ASHA workers go into houses and are measuring these babies. You typically find that every baby is measured at 2.5 kgs, which would mean either India is producing babies exactly of the same weight for every couple out there, or there is something happening with that data. And when somebody actually probes that further, you find that there are actually issues with that data. Because what is happening is there is social stigma. Most mothers will not allow an external person to come and touch a baby. So therefore, they won't allow you to, even see the baby. They say in Hindi and even in South India, they say, kala tika lagao, before somebody else sees the baby. The second is, it's a very precarious way of measuring the baby. You actually have a spring balance and you have to put the baby on it and measure it. Start telling this to a mother saying that I'm going to put it first, I'm going to touch your baby, that itself is a taboo. I'll put it on a spring balance, that's a bigger taboo. Nobody is going to let you do that activity, and therefore that becomes an extremely lopsided metric. And we said, okay, what if you deployed machine learning on this? But then the question came was, if you deployed machine learning on this, how would I give a smartphone to an ASHA worker whose typical daily wage is much lower than even a feature phone for the entire month? And that's where cloud came in. You today can deploy machine learning, you know the baby's weight, the water to mass ratio, They just click a photo using their regular feature phone, upload it on the cloud, and proceed. The entire analysis is done on the cloud. It is passed on onto a central database, and then further any schemes that have to kick in, whether it is national schemes or state level schemes, start kicking in based on that. And that's really the power of cloud, which is at grassroots level, you're able to make a significant impact to a problem that seems extremely simple, but is actually stemmed in multiple other localization issues that you would call. And I'm not saying India is unique. A lot of other countries also have similar such problems. So that, I think, is where we are seeing most of this start adopting. You've already heard, and the panelists all spoke about it, smart cities, infrastructure, transportation. DigiYatra today runs on cloud. Co-win we spoke about, COVID somebody spoke about. All of these are today running on cloud, but we're now getting to the tier 2 and the tier 3 applications, which are also, either being primarily designed for cloud or have a significant component of cloud, except for if there is a data residency or a localization or a latency issue, then yes, there is an appropriate check and balance put in. But otherwise, it's all designed for keeping in cloud in mind.
Fantastic. It's such an interesting topic. We can go on for hours discussing. We have such a phenomenal panel, but we're top of the hour. We just have about 7 to 8 minutes. So I just want to go quickly around the table, take some parting thoughts, starting with Anirudh ji on what are your final parting thoughts, advice on citizen-centric delivery?
As we go for the citizen-centric IT systems, we should keep in mind the security aspect also. Because nowadays, when we are using any social platform, social media platform, or our own applications, so we have to keep the cyber security in the mind. In NHPC, the NHPC have a zero tolerance for the cyber security, and we have, because the central body, namely NCI-IPC, National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, has declared some of the sectors as a critical sector from the cyber security point of view, and NHPC, power sector is one of them. So we are taking all the precautions while making the IT applications available to the internal users or as well as to the outside stakeholders. We keep all the check and controls, we have isolated our IT and OT infrastructure, and for OT infrastructure we have maintained a separate network, and it is not connected with our IT network. So this is my view. When we make the IT systems available to the users, we should also keep the mind cyber security also. Thank you.
Thank you. Ajitab ji, your thoughts?
Very important point on cyber security, because I worked in the energy sector, and the issue which happened just close to last Diwali in UP, when around more than 1 lakh electricity residential connections got shut off because of some IT glitch. So perhaps it was mishandling of the IT system, or it was something deliberate. I am not yet aware, but some committee was constituted, and particularly when we are dealing with like public utility sectors, which is water, energy, telecommunication, urban transportation, and transportation as such. Like when we talk about airways or railways or roadways. So cyber security is a very critical point. So rather than getting into exactly what you are expecting, I missed the reply of my second question which you had asked. So rather than going into detail, so my take on the issue of like IT intervention or use of information technology in citizen-centric services is, so I'll give you a very small example. I'll try to explain what we are trying to do in JCTSL. So it is always something more about than digitization. So digitization, then digitalization, and then digital transformation. There are 3 stages. So normally we get stuck either in the government systems, either in the digitization, which is like e-filing thing, or translating the data or the documents which are present in hard copy into digital form. So that is the only beginning stage. But we have to digitalize our So we have to digitalize our processes. That is more important. So taking the cue from digitalization, and the third step, which is digital transformation. So what we have done, like in JCTSL, is there are two different sources. Namaskar, sir. There are two different sources from where we are fetching the data. One is that in all buses, we have implemented electronic ticketing machines, ETMs. So the tickets are generated through the ETMs. The whole data goes to the server. A. The second source from which we are fetching the data is the GPS, Geographical Positioning System, or Global Positioning System, whatever we call. We, around 3 months ago, we had GPS-enabled buses only up to 20% of the total fleet size, but now we have reached up to the level of 85%. So that is the second source of data which we are getting into our whole database. Now this is the digitization which has happened. But how to utilize this data is more important. So now what we are doing it, and we have received excellent results in terms of optimizing our operations, enhancing our revenue, and increasing the number of passenger load. So the bottom line is that initially I used to fetch around 1.25 lakh passengers per day through my bus services. So that number has increased to 1.5 lakhs. Another basic criteria, which is earning per kilometer. So before using whatever tools, I'll further explain what we are doing. So the earning per kilometer was 39 rupees per kilometer. The total buses which we operate, each bus runs say for around 250 kilometers, and if there are 300 buses, multiply by that. So earning per kilometer has increased from 39 rupees to 44 rupees. That is a big jump. My cost has remained same. My bottom line has improved. My balance sheet has improved. So what we are doing is simply is that from the ETM data, electronic ticketing machine, I am in a position to now know that of the, say for example, 12 hours of total operations of each bus, what are the times when I am picking the passengers most, which we call the peak hour. So I know now that in the morning, like 8 to 9 a.m., my buses are running half full. At around 12 p.m. on this particular route, they are running more than full. That is, the load factor is more than 100%. And what is the position in the evening peak hour? Then late night. So now I have full data about the hour-wise detail of the load factor, 1. And 2, I have the information about the frequency also. Like now, what I have done is I have optimized, like say, if there is a particular industrial zone, which is in the periphery of Jaipur city. So if I have to say, like pick 1,000 passengers, so I cannot keep my passengers waiting. So I have to pick 1,000 of traffic, say if like in 1 hour. So how many buses I have to deploy? Now I know that. So if I have to transfer my bus from some non-peak area, which is running at say like 50 or 60% of the load factor, so I will shift my buses to those areas where my buses would run at full load factor. Because if I am into contract with the service operator on payment of per kilometer basis, my cost remains same. But if more passengers can utilize the services, so this is what is like digitalization, actual utilization of technology. Because unfortunately, with my experience of last 26 years in Indian administrative services, I have seen number of interventions in different departments where we have spent gigantic amounts to find IT solutions, to replicate the solutions. But when the time comes to actually utilize that technology, it becomes difficult, because then it comes to actual decision making, utilizing the tools or the mammoth data which is available to us. How do we do that? We have to prioritize. So this is a very simple example. And in the next level, the digital transformation. So I'm just linking it with the theory, what we have practiced. So what we have done is that we have launched a mobile app around 2 months ago, and we had a big urban mobility event in Jaipur city also, organized by Economic Times. I'm sorry, I'm taking name of another event organization. But so what we have done is that through that mobile app, now contactless ticketing facility is available there. But through that mobile app, we are now able to generate and push information and messages to the passengers, to the citizens of Jaipur city, that what is the scenario of the operation of buses. Because if it is a holiday, so the offices, government offices are closed, schools and colleges and universities are closed. So I cannot, now I do not operate whole of my bus fleet. So I go for curtailment. But I go for curtailment, the decision making for curtailment with the depots which I operate, the depot managers, do on basis of the tools which we have been able to generate. So we are experimenting this thing for last 2 months almost by now, and it's a good amount of data. And further, how to optimize the operations, not only operations, and what I said in the very beginning, that how to increase the road network coverage through my systems. That is what we are experimenting. So the gist is that we use IT tools, we spend sometimes hundreds of crores of rupees, particularly in big departments like water and energy and urban transport. But unless they are being used for some kind of predictive decision making, so I think we are not fully utilizing the investments which we have made, and the ROA should always be questioned. What is the return of the investment or expenditure which we have made? Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. Bandiji, your two
See, I
cents.
think for the universities, the data is very important of the students, exactly. What we are doing at university, we have also this mobile app. Through that you can do all this. As we have mentioned earlier, we have individual dashboard for students, their mobile number, email ID, and we have allotted the barcode to each and every student. So I think the security is the biggest issue, definitely, but we are taking through the cloud. As he has mentioned, we are taking care of all. We have a lot of IT applications where the huge amount of data is being utilized. You can know about the conducting the examination, not an easy task. Thousands of papers are there, combinations are there, different kind of courses are there, mapping all of them together, taking the help of big data and all. We are just trying to do all those things. So the security and all these features is still required to be done in a more way. What we are trying to do, we are just trying to take the help of IoT, so that we can do little bit more, and we can easily reach to the students with their problem solving activity. So there are a lot of activities taking place. We are running some courses also on based on that, all this kind of activity. So we are taking care of as much as we can do, and still we are looking for more thing about the NIC and all other industry, what we are doing, how they can offer much more better solution. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. IBS Setiji,
The scale at which the digital products and platforms are developed, huge amount of data is generated. So first of all, managing the critical infrastructure, cloud data center on which the services are hosted. So it has to be secure, reliable, with zero trust architecture, because we cannot take any chance on the security aspects. Then the data is like oil. So the way it is to be used for informed decision and actionable insights, so dashboard as a service, then use of AI, blockchain, and other data analytics tool. Like recently, we developed a certificate chain for CBSE. All 10, 12 student certificates are used, blockchain used and pushed, and we are NIC is working with Ministry of Education also on various projects of and DEAR, which enterprise architecture solution, which they are doing, and many other things. But we have to have a meaningful insights or deep dive into the database, and the system should be, now the concept is whole of the governments, should be siloless, faceless, cashless, so that citizens don't have to visit the offices frequently for various services.
Makes sense.
So, just picking up on what you just mentioned, right? I think security should be literally job zero for any infrastructure deployment that exists today, whether you're doing it on-prem or doing it on the cloud. What happens on the cloud is it becomes much more easier because the undifferentiated heavy lifting that you typically do when you're managing your own infrastructure is taken away, so that you can focus on, for example, building that next blockchain for education certificates, for land records, or having a survey for a land being done for maybe agri land or forest land, whatever it is. But develop those applications and leave that scaling up and scaling down of your infrastructure to what I call as a common denominator. That's one. The second is, you can also start innovating that much more faster, because once you have deployed a particular capacity physically, it becomes difficult for you to change that capacity if you suddenly realize your business model has changed. And business models do change. Regulations do come in, do come out, right? So at that point in time, how do I then suddenly switch gears in terms of my infrastructure requirements? For example, 3 years ago, machine learning had certain specific requirements, and you needed certain specific instances, whether it was of a certain chip or a particular manufacturer that you needed. And then suddenly you had new chips and new manufacturers come in specifically for machine learning chips that were built in. Now, what do I do of all that capacity that existed, which I purchased 4 years ago, which cloud automatically provides you through? So I think the variability of the business is increasing, variability of citizens asking you services, including in the way the digital public goods are moving, at the pace that they're moving is also increasing. And it is important that you are not constrained by the infrastructure requirements, the backend that you're typically reliant on, and you move more to an as-a-service model.
Awesome, fantastic. Your final thoughts, sir?
Like in the earlier round, when I was talking about the possibilities of the technology, which can make a difference to the whole water resources sector, still I was talking about possibility. Actually, I have not, tried to say we are already into that zone. So to do is something, but who is doing that? That is the factor which comes into play. So we can easily say that the technology has become doable. It's a lot of things across the industry which can be done there, can be very well mapped in water sector. But when it comes to the who is going to do, we have a bigger challenge. Basically, as I said, water is essentially a state sector subject, and these are the entities, the organizations who have to make the difference. But then there is a difficulty there, because these are essentially departments, gigantic departments, practically one state departments handling something like thousands and thousands of large dams. The canal networks run to millions of kilometers, dealing with all kind of stakeholders. On one front you are dealing with maybe the other state only arguing on something, where at the same time you have issues of farmers. But then your spectrum gets clouded. You don't have the clarity about exactly where the priority comes. Then huge money is involved. Everything's practically in the form of subsidy, but then we don't have the clarity exactly where this subsidy is actually moving. Now, in this kind of a scenario, this potential technology, and it's costly. To have it, it's not easy, because departments practically don't have that kind of a bandwidth, because there is already scarce resources. Something like 5,700 dams, we have large dams. Unknown number of practically what we call as the smaller dams. They need huge money even for maintenance. Canal networks need huge money for maintenance. Then these new technologies, the margin is not available there. So there is a need for this state government to have a rethink on the kind of organizational entities they can deal with, because there is a need to have clarity of objective for each segment of the organization. And then there is a need to ensure there is a financial sustainability. Unless that happens, the need to move to the new technology and to be able to see the benefit out of that will still remain a big gap. That's all.
Awesome. So when you have a panel with this depth of experience and gravitas, you want to go on and on, but unfortunately we're top of the hour. Thank you all for taking the time out and sharing your insights. I learned a lot, and please feel free to connect with the esteemed panelists during